Greetings, terrestrials. Today, January 7th, 2021. And boy, are these some strange times indeed. Speaking of strange times indeed, you're watching Strange Times Indeed with Cliff McCallister here on twitch.tv/MetComedyNight. I, of course, am your host, the czar of the bizarre, Cliff McCallister. Every week on this show, we take your calls to hear about the bizarre and unexplained things happening out in the world. We hear your thoughts unfiltered here on our show, a show that broadcasts truth out into the world. Perhaps one of the most important shows on the internet. That is Strange Times Indeed with Cliff McCallister. Now tonight, things might feel a little different. Things might feel a little strange for other reasons. Maybe you, like me, exist out in the real world and encountered some strange badness yesterday, some things that might leave you feeling a little shaken, a little stressed. I know I certainly did as well, and we will be talking about that a little bit tonight. We're also going to, after we discuss that, get into a little bit of self-care. How do you take care of yourself when things can be this scary? I'll be putting together this little toy right here on the air. Building a Yeti on the show. You can call in and share what you are doing to get by, what helps soothe you in troubled times. Because, and that's not saying we should ignore what's going on, but it is to say you do have to take 5 or 10 minutes for yourself, or you'll lose your mind. Now, I do think it's very important that we talk about what happened, what is going on in the world right now. Because in our field of study, the paranormal, the unknown, the unexplained, this field is rife with splinter groups, with differing ideologies, and most notably, conspiracy. There is no field of research more prone to conspiracy theories than that of the unexplained. Tonight, I wanted to take some time at the top of our broadcast to discuss conspiracies, as you cannot go more than 10 minutes exploring unexplained phenomenon without encountering some sort of conspiracy. Now, I'm not coming to you to say conspiracies are bad. Some can be fun, some can shine light on important topics. Did a UFO crash in Roswell, New Mexico in 1947? Did Stanley Kubrick fake the moon landing? Who killed Marilyn Monroe? And did Jeffrey Epstein really commit suicide? While other conspiracy theories can have dangerous real-world consequences, as we have witnessed yesterday in our nation's capital. Make no mistake, yesterday's attack on one of our nation's oldest institutions was the result of years of fear-mongering and placating white supremacy. But it was also the apex moment of a narcissism-driven conspiracy. A conspiracy created by a man whose own beliefs, whose own worldview is based on one sole belief, that he is a winner. And when for the first time in his life he loses, a conspiracy is birthed in his brain. Because there is no way that this man, who has spent his whole life winning, could lose so bad and so publicly. So something twists. It is not he who is the loser. It is the losers who are cheating. This is a dangerous ideology, a dangerous conspiracy, driven by a narcissistic need to rise to power. And tonight on Strange Times Indeed with Cliff McCallister, we're going to be examining the dangers of narcissism-driven conspiracy. But before we do that, let's sit back and talk about how conspiracies are born. How conspiracies are created in our world, in our time, in our space-time continuum. Stephen, can I ask you a question? Are there any comments in the chat?
I don't see any comments in the chat yet. Who's here with us?
The important thing is that you're watching, but I had a little script
We have 6 listeners
and comments, and I didn't see any comments, and I thought some people would be like, "Power to the people" or something. Or tell them, Cliff.
You know what's interesting, Cliff? I'm glad that you've got this Yeti thing going on to do during the show. During the show today, I'm coloring in these little squares on this grid as you are speaking today with all of these crayons. Don't we all just need something to keep our hands busy?
Tell me, Cliff. Look, people are here. They are ready to listen. All right. Well, let's get into it, folks. How are conspiracies made? How are they created? This is something, and I have been asked about many times. People seek my expertise on this topic. We are going to sit back. We are going to discuss this for a little bit, because it's not all conspiracy theories. It's not all the dangerous things that have led to the events in Washington, D.C. just this past day. But conspiracies are often created by people like you or I, terrestrials in and of our world, who have witnessed things or who have seen things that they can't explain, that just don't make sense to them. And rather than looking at them in a scientific manner to figure out exactly what's going on, their brain rushes to a conclusion, fills in the gaps, and creates a conspiracy. It's their twisting of reality to explain something that they can't presently explain on their own. And in this reality, you're sitting at home, like those of you doing coloring books. Perhaps instead of a coloring book, you're doing a dot-to-dot puzzle. There you are, you're connecting one line to the next, and your brain sees a dot on the other page. Well, this is a different illustration. It's so far away from the puzzle you're currently working on, but you see that dot in your brain, and you think, well, now there's an idea. And you take your pencil and you draw your line all the way to the other page, connecting an unrelated dot. And from there, you throw out the numbers. And at that moment, it doesn't matter exactly what it is that works, as long as it fits. It doesn't matter what dots you're connecting, as long as it fits the picture in your brain. You're picking and choosing to create the visual that supports your reality. And in the end, you create some sort of bastardized dog with the butt of a sea lion. Quite a fun analogy. You see, when it comes to conspiracy theories, you're not just working to connect the dots in your brain, but look at it. Take a step back and look at it scientifically. Compare it, if you will, to the scientific method. There, in the scientific method, you are trying to solve one of the unknowns in our world. You're trying to figure out what is going on. And you start with a hypothesis. If this and this happen, then the result might be this. And so you work within the scientific method. You do this research to try and figure out what does happen when this and this combine. Do they make the thing? If I put an apple tree, if I plant an apple tree next to an orange tree, will the roots combine and grow a tree that makes both apples and oranges? You don't know if it'll work. But your hypothesis is that a tree will probably sprout in the middle that does both. Then you do the test and you discover whether or not it does. That's how science works. I don't know. I maybe should have asked. Does Stephen have permission to use those crayons? A lot of people are wondering about what's going on in Stephen's life.
I really don't know. I might have made an assumption. I'm pretty sure it's cool, but it's really helpful. This is where I am so far.
Wonderful, Stephen. As I was saying about the scientific method, you work your way to a conclusion. But when you're working in conspiracy, you start with the conclusion. You don't think the if and the and. You know that one thing happened, and you begin at the end. You've filled in the blanks in your head already. So you've got your conclusion, and you're spending all your time looking for whatever it is that might support this conclusion. And so it's in the back of your mind the entire time you're sorting this thing out, or just as you go through your life. Well, there's no way I could have lost that election. And you're walking along, and suddenly you see one little thing, and you tug on that because that's a justification. So it makes it make sense as to why you're doing these things. It is supporting your conclusion, even if it's completely unrelated. It could be this person was hanging out in Antarctica on this day. Well, that's coincidentally the same day that this happened. And these two unrelated dots are now connected. And all of that works in some way or another to support your conclusion. That's how you make a conspiracy theory. Much like writing a mystery novel, you know who the killer is, you know what they've done to get there, and you start from the beginning and find all the twists. With conspiracy, it's a little different. It's just like writing a mystery novel. You start with the end, and you find everything you need to justify your belief. Now, this can lead to some important things. Uncovering the UFO crash at Roswell. It like I said, who killed Marilyn Monroe? We researched it on this show. Who killed Jeffrey Epstein? You look. Was it the Philadelphia experiment? No, that was the disappearing. The experiments of introducing drugs into marginalized communities that were done purposefully by the CIA. These are all things that have been uncovered, true conspiracies out there that showcase how people are being oppressed or being hurt or information is being hidden. However, when the pendulum swings and the conspiracy you're searching for is not outside, but solely serves yourself, when you find yourself in the heat of narcissism, that's when the conspiracies that you generate can be more dangerous than anything on this known earth. They're paranoia-guided beliefs. Any form of racism, prejudice in and of itself could be said to be a conspiracy. A fear of something else, someone else who you do not know, you've never met them, but because you've heard things about them, you develop these beliefs that certain people are greedy or certain people are dangerous. And you apply that to people you don't really know. You people who you're just meeting for the first time. You're taking a dot on a different page and connecting two unrelated things. But you are doing that because this is where conspiracy meets with narcissism. Because we feel that we are the most important person out in the world. It's conspiracy and narcissism pair to remove any sense of empathy from our lives. So these paranoid delusions of someone who can care only about themselves are where we get more dangerous conspiracy theories out there. And what we witnessed just in the past day was the apex moment for what many people don't seem to consider to be a conspiracy at all, is the belief that Joe Biden won the election. And I don't say people don't believe it in that it's a conspiracy. I say that people have heard these types of statements from Trump, from our president, and without even considering it a conspiracy theory, they write it off as a lie or as a buffoonish statement. And part of this is because there's no evidence to back that up. But make no mistake, we are connecting unrelated dots, and we are forming a conspiracy theory. And this is how it was created: is we've got a person, we've got the president of our United States, Donald Trump, a known man who has spent his whole life thinking solely about himself. Picture this, if you will. You have a world leader whose entire personality is based upon winning. The concept that he is a winner, The fact that losers and losing is the worst thing you can be. He surrounds himself with yes men, people who will agree with him no matter what he claims and no matter what he plans. And if you should divert from his plan, if you should disagree with him at any point or make him look like a fool, make him look like a buffoon, like a loser, then you're out of the job. This is the way this man has lived and behaved his whole life. You can see it in the way that he, in the people who he's rented his apartments to in the 70s. The way that he personally would ensure that people of color did not get places in his apartments. And it is because he has this fear of things that are not like him. He perceives them to be dangerous. He has this conspiracy of racism in his head. That paranoia that they'll lower his property values or whatever the hell he's afraid of. And so he lives his life, and as he's going on, his narcissism is consistently fed by the media, by NBC, by reality. He's getting cameos in Home Alone 2. He gets his own game show. He gets his own game show where he gets to mingle with celebrities. Not only is he no longer dealing with boring, uninteresting business people, but he's now interacting with celebrities, the elite. The most popular thing you could be, and Donald Trump became both of those. He became a powerful, wealthy businessman and a celebrity. That's about as high as you can get in the scale of how shallowly he views his worth in the world. This was the apex for him until he realized he might have a chance at becoming the president of the United States, the highest position in the land. More powerful than any celebrity, more powerful than any high-powered businessman, no real estate mogul. No matter how much land you own, you can't truly own it unless you're the president of the United States. And so he begins to covet this position. He sets his sight on it as perhaps the next great thing that could happen in his life. And as he is setting this goal for himself, he sees President Barack Obama's rise to the presidency. And it doesn't make sense to him because this is a person of color, a person who looks different from him. For the first time in his life, he is witnessing a person of color ascend to a position of power that he has not even reached yet. And so his brain breaks a little bit in that moment. And he says, how on earth, if he has attained this kind of power, but he does not look like me, he does not sound like me, this doesn't make sense. And so it can't be that this man is more of a winner than him. It's got to be that this man isn't playing fairly. It's got to be that this man was never born in America, that he's some Kenyan operative who's trying to destroy our great way of living. Suddenly, he must be the enemy, as Donald Trump perceives him to be. And the Obama is from Kenya conspiracy is birthed in that moment. And he starts with that. He sees a person of color on the television ascending to the presidency, and he says, that can't be possible. That doesn't make sense. And in that moment, he makes the decision. He births the conspiracy, the birther conspiracy. He creates it before he has any facts. He hasn't done any research. He hasn't looked to see where Obama is born. He just asks the question, and he creates that conspiracy and starts spreading it around because he's reached a level of power where he knows people will listen to him. And he gets to go on the news. And he gets to ask about these things on the news. And he gets to say, I haven't seen the birth certificate. I don't know where it could be coming from. How do we really know if we haven't seen his birth certificate? So this idea is born that President Barack Obama wasn't even born in America, and so he must be. Did extraterrestrials make him president? I believe is the question in the chat. Exactly. And this is a thing we will get into in just a minute, because Rudy Giuliani, when talking about Biden losing the presidency, said that votes could have been sent in from Mars. So that's quite a claim from Rudy Giuliani with no evidence to back it. Yes, we talked about that on an earlier episode because we are a show that exists in this world and of this world. And so we discuss this world. When strange things happen, no matter how hard they are to believe, whether they may be so shocking, we exist in the same world as you. And so we are going to discuss it on Strange Times Indeed with Cliff McCallister. Well, as I was saying, he creates this conspiracy theory that the president is not from America because it's the only way in his mind that he can justify somebody else rising to that power that he hasn't yet attained. And if it were a white guy, he would be fine with it because he is a white guy and he can get there. But he sees President Obama as someone who is lower than him simply because of the color of his skin. And thusly, the conspiracy is born that he must be from another place, that he must have done this unfairly because he is greedy or dangerous or whatever. And that is the first mainstream conspiracy theory spouted by Donald Trump. The reason we are discussing conspiracy theories tonight on the show and the true nature of them is because, as we all know, yesterday, a right-wing militia of terrorists stormed into the Capitol building with the assistance of the Metropolitan Police Department. Now, you might not necessarily say they were assisted by them, but let's face the facts. We know what these armed police officers are capable of, and they didn't show a tenth of that power when they knew goddamn well people were probably going to be storming government buildings today. So think about it the mayor of Baltimore, the mayor of Washington, D.C., who so kindly wrote Black Lives Matter on the street and was so prescient as to how bad things might be yesterday that she told D.C. citizens to stay home and stay away from the protests. And then what happens? She knew it was so bad, but we couldn't prepare the police for that? I don't know. This just seems a little fishy to me. Seems like we're edging for one side of the team, one side of the coin to win this one out. Anyway, perhaps a conspiracy theory in and of itself. But when we've got conspiracy and it has reached this level, this amount of power, you see, Donald Trump, he finally gets past his first conspiracy theory, his first big mainstream one. It hits and people validate him. He gets to go on TV. He gets to talk about it. And that's feeding his narcissism. It's telling people, yes, Donald, you're right. You're correct, Donald. Donald, that is right. Donald, you're doing great. And then what he does is he says, I can be the president now because people believe in me. People trust me when it comes to talking about the presidency. She doesn't control the Capitol Police. Well, whoever controlled them a certain way in July that they certainly didn't do when people were breaking into government buildings. There we go. Let's see, where were we? Donald Trump. Look at that, Stephen. Incredible work. And see, these are stressful times. Sometimes you've got to do a little thing on the side while you're listening to these kinds of topics to keep you from getting all fired up. Stephen, I'm sure you were ready to rip your phone out of its screen. Rip it right out of the TV.
Well, I couldn't reach for it because these were in my hands.
You've got to keep yourself calm sometimes. When you're addressing topics like this, it's important that you take some time to take care of yourself. Sit back, have a sip of tea. In fact, let's go do this, Stephen. Let's roll a quick break. And when we come back, we will discuss Donald Trump's conspiracy theory that pushed us right over the edge into the incident that happened yesterday. Stephen, roll the break.
Hello, everybody. We are the Comedy Pigs. We're practicing a game we call Scenes from a Hat. Wrong things to say at a eulogy.
I am so gonna miss Mr. I'm just gonna really miss this guy here. He's a good guy.
You just borrowed like $100 from me. like Thursday, so just wondering who's gonna pay now that he's dead.
Things you can shout at a football game, but not in bed.
Whoa, you could have drove a dump truck through that gap.
Yeah, we're dealing with a bunch of overpaid prima donnas here.
Man, his brother and his dad are way better at doing that than he is.
Bye.
See you at the show.
Right. Thank
See you at
you,
the shows.
Comedy Pigs.
Thank you, Comedy Pigs.
Bye.
Bye. Goodbye, Comedy
Hey,
Pigs.
you're watching at home. Greetings, terrestrials. The date is January 7th, 2021, and these are some strange times indeed. I'm Cliff McCallister, the host of Strange Times Indeed with Cliff McCallister, Bizarre of the Bizarre. Now, every week on this show, we take your calls and we listen to what unexplained phenomenon you have experienced out there in the world. We talk about the unexplained, about the bizarre. We also talk about conspiracy theories, which is why we're having an important discussion about conspiracy theories tonight on the show. But before we get to that, it's very important that we say, after that incredible ad break, Stephen, this program is dedicated to the Maryland Ensemble Theater right here in Frederick, Maryland. They're the only theater with the guts to put us on the air. We say some pretty crazy and truthful things here on Strange Times Indeed with Cliff McCallister. And they give us a space to do it right here on twitch.tv/MetComedyNight every Thursday at 9 o'clock. Now, tomorrow night at 9 o'clock here on twitch.tv/MetComedyNight, you can find the Comedy Pigs and their traditional, incredible short-form improv programming. I also hear that those folks at the Maryland Ensemble Theater are cooking up the next production for their season of surprises. They say they're hard at working at it, and they're not quite sure they're ready to reveal what it is yet, but they say that something brilliant will come to them. So we will just wait and see exactly what that is. Now, I am getting some breaking news. Somebody is handing me a piece of paper, and my goodness, wow, Zowie.
Is that Kevin that handed you the piece of paper, Cliff?
That's right, my producer, Kevin Cole, just handed me this piece of paper.
Tell Kevin I said, hey.
This is breaking news. Steven says hi. Breaking news coming to us fittingly tonight. We are getting news off of the wire that Betsy DeVos, the Secretary of Education, has resigned today as of the result of what happened in Washington, D.C. yesterday, and the president's refusal to believe that he lost the 2020 election. Now, Betsy DeVos, one of the many people who have caused a lot of harm over the last 4 years and have decided to resign just now, as if they weren't aware that everything was awful and terrible at their own fault before. See, what these people are doing in resigning now is protecting their own reputation. They have enabled themselves to yes man a yes man, to build up Donald Trump and support him, and rise to important places of power where they can say, look at all the good that I am doing. I am so important and I am so powerful and I am making it harder and harder for other people to be important and powerful like me. And so they pushed these people down. But when it gets to a point that it gets so bad that it could be bad for their image, then they break away. They're only serving themselves. This is a confederacy of narcissists. And the most recent conspiracy theory created by the narcissistic drive of Donald Trump is that the Democrats cheated in the 2021 election. He created this because he has spent his entire life telling people that he is a winner, telling people that he is a powerful man with a lot of money, and you should respect him because he has the biggest brain and went to the best school. He is a winning man. It's not only how he makes the world see him, but it's how he sees himself. This is a man who has not once in his life been said no to, or very importantly, when he has been told no, has not taken no for an answer. One of the many things he should probably be in jail for, if you know what I'm saying. But he lets this narcissism, this sense of winning, build him up as he gets to the most powerful spot in the land. And he is filled 24/7 a day by people telling him, yes, Mr. Trump, you're right. Yes, Mr. President. Yes, President Daddy Trump, you're doing the best job. You're the best man. And his own ego, his own narcissism swells to such an incredible degree. And then on November 4th, or more technically November 5th, or more technically any number of days over the month of November, a man who has risen to the highest seat of power based on the idea that he is a winner for the very first time in his life, and very publicly loses. And something in his brain snaps. Just like when he saw Obama in the presidency in 2008. Just like when people of color thought they could get an apartment in his building. Something in his brain snapped. And he said, no. I'm a winner. I win. I win. I'm winner. I win. I am winner. Win.
Win, 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 win.
Win.
Win, win.
I'm winner. I'm winner.
I'm a winner. Win, win, win.
They cheated. There's no way I could have lost this. There's no way that I could have lost. It doesn't make sense.
Cheaters.
It doesn't make sense. They cheated. It's the only way it could have happened. And that conspiracy is born. But what is different from when most people have this kind of breakdown is that they are not in the highest seat of power in the world. They have not ascended to the presidency. They do not have a following of half the country who have blindly devoted themselves to doing whatever this narcissist says. And so this narcissism has carried this man from conspiracy to conspiracy until he now has control over half the country. But clearly not half, like 4/6 or 40% of the country, I guess.
It's even less than that for the world.
You're correct. A lot of people do not vote because they do not see both parties as being really that different if you get down to the core of it, and don't see themselves being represented well in any political party. So that whatever percentage is, it's less than that, but there aren't as many people supporting him. But it's just enough. It's enough to reach thousands, it's enough to reach hundreds. And when he loses that position so publicly, he has no choice as a winner to go up and tell everyone that the other people cheated. He might not have any evidence of this. He might have no knowledge, no evidence to back it up, but he knows in his heart that he was cheated. So he's going to tell all the others. He knows people will make claims. They'll say, yeah, I think I saw something, because that's how conspiracy spreads. He's got people out there in the world who also think that there's no way he could have lost. It's not possible. And so they see a person of color who they think about the person of color who was also there voting that day. And they think, well, I've never seen him in the neighborhood before. He must have come in here to vote twice. There must be some kind of voter fraud. Or they think, oh, well, we don't know. I still get my grandma's dead mail. I bet my grandma probably got a ballot, and then some socialists stole it and wrote it in for Joe Biden and sent it in pretending she was still alive.
You know, and I kind of have a question here, Cliff. Like, I mean, he said it was going to be a fraudulent election for months as it was coming up. So therefore, people are already thinking and believing they're going to see it when they go to vote, right? Or is that, I don't know. I'm not as trained in the conspiracies as you are. So.
No, Stephen, that's a very good point. And this is something that he plants very early on, because he said during the 2016 election for Hillary Clinton, when it was in October, when the tape came out of him saying the dirty things about the woman on the bus, he started saying, I think I'm going to win it, but I don't know. They could have rigged it. I think I keep hearing that it's been rigged. And then he won, and he could pocket that idea for another day. But that's the paranoia guiding him, telling him this is a rigged thing. It's fake. It's not. It's set up to make you fail, because he knows his chances are probably not that great. One would say that he lost. He would probably lose a popular vote once or twice. But he's not going to believe that, because he's a winner, and so he knows. He's hedging the bets in his mind already. If I've lost, it's not my fault. They have cheated. And so when this happens very bigly and very publicly this past November, he, as the president of the United States, using that clout, using that power, takes to the airwaves and starts telling people that they stole the election from us. And he starts telling people to rally in DC. And so all of a sudden, on the day that the votes are being tabulated, all these people show up in DC. All these terrorists come in who have been brainwashed by this cult of narcissistic conspiracy into believing that they are being lied to, that their votes are being stolen. And it culminates in this terrible violence and breakdown that, again, like I said, could have easily been prevented if the police used any of the things they had at their disposal a couple months ago when Black people were protesting for the right to live. So think about that what you will. But this whole conspiracy blows up, and that's why we're talking about it on the show. Because there's good oh, thank you, Stephen. Yes, if you are drawing, if you're doing something nice at home, you've got to keep yourself calm. So as I was saying, he gets to this seat of power. He loses. He blasts this conspiracy out, and because he has attained such power, what was once a narcissistic conspiracy driven by paranoia and delusion, is reaching the highest seat of power it could possibly get. And so it brings all of this man's followers to DC to try to break down a system that has been in place, that has been tested, based on conspiracies that do not have any evidence to back them up, because they don't need evidence. It's all about the one person. It's all about his ego, about his narcissism, about feeding how important he is. And they want to be good because they want to be like him, so they feed into that ego, and they make him more powerful because they want to be good for him. Because they want a seat at the throne. They think that he is going to bring them to that same level of power. And so they blindly follow this conspiracy theory. And it erupts like it did yesterday in Washington, D.C. And so I just needed to take some time to break down how conspiracies happen and how we got to what happened here. Because you will watch paranormal broadcasting programs, some of the great ones, like, let's say, Coast to Coast AM, for example. Once a great show hosted by Art Bell, people would call in the middle of the night to talk about their strange experiences that they're having out in the world. And he would take these calls, and it would be fascinating and weird. But in more recent years, they've led more into conspiracy and swung more into the right-wing conspiracy territory, the territory of conspiracies that are driven by narcissism and grasps for power. And so you'll find more and more going around and talking to people in the paranormal community that there are some troubles in the community with bigotry and white supremacy and stuff like that. And not everybody's that way, but that's kind of how you see it most portrayed in the media. When you think of a show like ours, you might think maybe not even First to Coast AM. If you haven't heard of it, you might think InfoWars, because every time you talk about UFOs, somewhere a conspiracy comes in. And I think it's very important that on this show, on Strange Times Indeed with Cliff McCallister, we be a little intentional when we start talking about conspiracies. There are conspiracies like the Lizard Man, reptilian conspiracy purported by David Icke that is very mainstream. People are very aware of it. It's a very big pop culture thing that the lizard people are out there and they're all shape-shifting lizards. But when you look further into that conspiracy belief, you find that it's also deeply rooted in anti-Semitism and the prophecies of Zion or whatever. I don't put what it is in the chat. It'll probably get us flagged. But it's the elders of Zion and have tied into the lizard people conspiracy. It's all kind of tied into this dark like anti-Semitic racist beliefs. But because it's lizard people and reptilians from the moon and stuff like that, it also ties in very much with like the paranormal and the extraterrestrial community. And so I want to be very clear that here at Strange Times Indeed with Cliff McCallister, we do a show that is intentional and friendly in the ideas that we put out there, because this world could be a whole lot better. And there are a lot of people, a lot of marginalized people out there who are working to make the world a whole lot better. We have so many like queer friends and supporters of the show whom we love, and we need to be clear that this is like a safe and welcoming space when some worlds of conspiracy and paranormal can be very dangerous. And so that's why we needed to talk about this on the show tonight, and I couldn't just let us ignore it and just skip past it. So Stephen, thank you.
Thank you, Cliff. Thank you. What a public service.
I think it's absolutely frightening what happened yesterday, and a lot of people are jarred by it. And people tune into our show and they want to call in and say, Cliff, I had the craziest thing happen. But I know a lot of those people might be a little shaken up right now. And I think when we're seeing analysis of what has happened in DC the past day, a lot of people aren't necessarily talking about how it all spurned from a conspiracy theory, because we've written it off as what it is. To be fair, we've written it off as lying, but you also need to examine it from, this isn't just a man who's the liar telling another lie. There's a conspiracy that has been built around it. And people latch onto ideas, and that's where it can become dangerous.
Cliff, there's a comment I'm not sure that we recognized yet by Clark Quant. I didn't realize there was so much similarity between how Trump and Borat form their sentences.
Yes, well, Trump and Borat are always talking about their wives.
Gotcha.
And he likes to say, my wife.
Gotcha.
My wife, Ivanka. Or whichever it is.
My wife.
I guess Ivanka's his daughter, but we all know what he wishes.
It's a good movie, that Borat movie. If you haven't seen it, maybe we should watch it together, Cliff.
Maybe.
Just me and you, not for a show.
Let me tell you something, Stephen. I'm a little more into the realm of science fiction when it comes to film. And we've been having some fun with that as well. A couple of weeks ago, we streamed Alien Xmas with I believe our friend Clark Hunt in the chat here, Isaac Duarte, our resident expert of the Bunnyman Bridge. We watched Alien Xmas with them on the show, and more recently, if you follow me on Instagram at Strange Times Indeed, we've been doing some movie watch-alongs together. on Christmas night, I know a lot of us could not be with our families on Christmas, but we got together on Instagram. We had a very nice time. We celebrated the first annual Strange Times Indeed Prometheusmas, where we all at the same time started watching the classic Ridley Scott Christmas film Alien franchise prequel, Prometheus. We watched it together. It was a great time, and I think we're gonna watch some more movies on Instagram. We'll be like, hey, this movie is streaming on this service. We're all gonna watch it at this time. So keep an eye peeled. You know, I don't know if one of those movies will be Borat, Steven.
That's okay. That's okay. It's just, well, it's kind of topical because, you know, I don't want to spoil the movie. I don't want to say anything. So yeah.
All right.
But he does go to a rally, where people weren't wearing masks and such, and it's kind of tense.
Oh, are you referring to Borat 2?
Yes, the second one.
Ah, yes. I have not. I thought you were talking about Borat 1. Yes, Borat 2 would probably be a little more relevant to watch today.
Pretty relevant. There's a time where you see a rally and you can see some of similar people of where they came from. It was a rally after the pandemic, and them saying they don't want the masks and a lot of flags, colorful people that were in the Capitol building.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, anyways, you get back to it. This is where I am on my drawing.
Yes. Well, like we've been talking about, we've been saying, how do you kind of keep calm during these times? You find yourself in the midst of all this chaos, and it's very easy to get worked up and very easy to get upset. Lord knows I have done it. I'm sure many of us have. But you've always got to make sure that you at least give yourself 5 minutes somewhere to take a breath and recenter yourself so you don't absolutely lose your mind. Blowing out candles. You know, Stephen, that gives me an idea. It's just something we just have not done on the show in some time. But I think we could all use it tonight. Let's try our hand at this to bring our show to a close. A lot of times on this program, we have discussed the method of reaching out and initiating contact with extraterrestrials through the CE5 method, the Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, which is human terrestrial initiated contact with an extraterrestrial. And this is believed to be done by Dr. Stephen Greer through a process of meditation, of deep concentration, and reaching out telepathically to these extraterrestrial beings. And I think it might be pertinent, after everything we've discussed today, to sit back, to find ourselves next to a window and look up into the sky and take a hand at contacting this species and seeing if we can relay some of this information to them. Because let's say if they were to appear on our planet yesterday and witness what happened without any context, it would not look good. And they might get the wrong impression as to who is being oppressed in this country by the way people are behaving. And so let's try, if we can, to reach out to these extraterrestrials and see if we can't contact them through meditation and give them a little context and maybe paint a more positive light on this world, so they might be willing to come and work with us or cooperate with us and greet us in peace as we should hope to greet them. So go ahead, wherever you are in your home, I want you to find yourself by a window. I cannot say exactly what the skies look like where you are, but the stars are clear over here. gaze out through that window, look up into the skies, and just observe. What do you see up there? Is there a ship, a sort of movement moving across the sky? Whatever could it be? Do you hear a distant meowing in the distance, and you think someone is far too upset out in the distance, and you think, I'm going to project my energy out to where that is, and I'm going to send them some good energy, and I'm going to do some deep breaths, breathing in, breathing out. I have to step out of the room to fetch our intern. Please continue to breathe at your own leisure. Reach out to this other upset entity in the universe and wrap them up in a great big hug so they know that everything's gonna be all right. And then when they squirm out of your arms and crawl away, gaze back up into the sky. Look up amongst the stars and see there's anyone you can connect with out there beyond our planet. Try to paint them a picture of the world in a different way from how it looked yesterday. Perhaps picture, if you would, your ideal world. A country that functioned to take care of its people and make sure that people did not go broke because they could not afford health care. Picture in your mind, put forth an image of what you think this world could be if this world was at its best. And project that out into the cosmos. Keep thinking about the possibilities of what this world could be like if we focus our energies on doing some actual good for the people of this world and for the world itself, for the climate, for the planet. Picture the utopia that we are capable of if we all work together and put our needs to make money and to attain power aside and project that vision of the world out into the cosmos. Make it so that any passing ship, any passing entities who may be capable of picking up telepathic feeds, pick up on this first. Pick up on what we are capable of if we are at our best. And just broadcast that out. Because that's the kind of energy we want to be greeted with. So they know our intentions are pure and good, and that these advanced civilizations might be able to help us get there. Take some more deep breaths. In, out, in, out. Take one more deep breath in. Let it out. As you let it out, wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes, wiggle your extremities a little. Do a little tiny dance with your shoulders. Reintroduce yourself into the physical realm in which you inhabit. Turn your gaze back to your computer or device and your attention back to twitch.tv/MetComedyNight and Strange Times Indeed with Cliff McCallister. Boy, oh boy, has it been one ride tonight, one important show. I want to thank each and every one of you for viewing and commenting and hearing me out on this one. And I think we had some important things to talk about, and I hope we processed it in a good and healthy way. I'm always open to feedback. If you have some to give, you can send those feedback, or you can send tips throughout the week. Of course, this show is a call-in show, typically. We'll ask people to call in, share their experience with the unexplained. We put a Zoom link in the chat on a traditional night show. And so if you've experienced anything odd that you can't quite wrap your head around, be it extraterrestrials, be it ghosts, be it interdimensional beings, we invite you to call in every Thursday, 9 o'clock here on twitch.tv/MetComedyNight. You can also send your tips anonymously to strangetipsindeed@gmail.com. Again, that email address is strangetipsindeed@gmail.com. You can send in your tips there during the week if you don't feel comfortable calling in or you have something to submit anonymously. You can also contact me on Instagram at strangetimesindeed, where we might do some more movie streams in the future. We can all watch along whatever fun science fiction movie is streaming. It's my favorite film genre. So we get together and we'll watch some of those on Instagram. You can also follow me on Twitter at strangeteindeed. That one we don't use as much as Instagram, but it never hurts to get my thoughts anywhere you can. I, of course, am Cliff McCallister, the czar of the bizarre. We dedicate this show this weekend every week to the Maryland Ensemble Theater, the only theater with the guts to put us on the air. And, of course, a big thank you this week to Stephen Craig, our technical director. Stephen, thank you so much for pushing all the buttons. Look at that, keeping himself calm. This is just a form of physical meditation in a nice, fun way. Thank you to each and every one of you who tuned in tonight. For Strange Times Indeed, I'm Cliff McCallister, the czar of the bizarre. Stay strange, terrestrials.